Hello, everyone, and welcome. I would like to introduce our second keynote discussion of the conference, which is sponsored by Accelera, on the topic of seizing the opportunity for the life sciences sector. And I'm joined with Dr. Murray McCutcheon, who we are going to have a fireside chat about this. I think it's safe to say that the BC companies have really been helping to solve major challenges around the world over the last couple of years. And it's based off of a long history of research and scientific discovery that Canada has been undertaking in BC in particular. So we're super thrilled to have you here, Murray. Maybe you could start by telling me a bit about yourself and your role at Accelera.
Thanks so much, Wendy. It's a pleasure to be here and to be present for the event today. So I'm Vice President of Corporate Development at Accelera, and my role entails a combination of strategy and operations. I'm born and raised, a little bit about myself, born and raised in Vancouver. I'm a proud Canadian. I started my career in the United States, postgraduate school, and spent about a decade working at the interface of research and early stage commercialization before moving back to Vancouver 6 years ago to help Accelera grow.
And so what attracted you back to Accelera? And I think we can feed into that question. Also, there's a lot of talk about the brain drain and now the brain return. So maybe you can talk a little bit about both what brought you back, but how those experiences in the US helped shape what you bring to Accelera today.
Absolutely. At the time, I'd finished my PhD and searching for broader horizons and more opportunities than I saw here in BC. This is about 15 years ago. And I set my sights on the Boston ecosystem, where I first started as a postdoctoral fellow and then moved into a variety of positions in translation and early stage commercialization. I think what attracted me to Boston at the time was this incredible mix of academia, of entrepreneurs, of venture capital, of large companies. It really is world renowned, and I wanted to go and immerse myself in that and see how I could build up my skills beyond the bench and really work to have a bit more impact in the here and now, and try to build something. So that I'd say was a formational experience. And after spending the best part of the decade in and around Cambridge and Boston, I became hungry to come back to Canada and to try to help build up the ecosystem here. I was fortunate to find the opportunity at Accelera. It was clearly a remarkable team with a foundational technology in a really important space and solving big problems. So that led me to return 6 years ago. I'd say in my time in Boston and throughout other ecosystems in the US and globally, it's amazing how many Canadians you see in these forums, right? You see leaders in academia, you see a lot of the investors in this space, in companies, entrepreneurs. We really punch well above our weight. And I think it's an extraordinary opportunity for us to build on this great ecosystem we have here now in BC, and start to think about how we can repatriate some of these Canadians. We at Accelera have often talked about how we've benefited from the local talent pool and provide an opportunity for the great talent that's graduating here to find opportunities locally and not have to leave, not go elsewhere. I recently heard Professor Andre Marziali at UBC, who's a noted entrepreneur as well, say that he's used to telling his students, you need to go to go to the US to find opportunities, and he doesn't say that anymore. And I think that's something to really celebrate, but also realize that we have to double down on that. Like, how can we continue to build up our opportunities here as an industry so that we can retain the great talent and continue to attract people to move back here.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to pick up on, so 15 years ago, you went to Boston for those reasons, and some of it had to do with that strong academic research industry ecosystem. How would you, what you described is how we describe BC today. So interested in your perspective of BC today versus that 15 years ago. And, building off of what you said, the professor said about, maybe you don't have to leave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the seeds are there, and we can see the uplift in our ecosystem. I'm on a variety of forums like this, and there's a palpable energy, and I'd say looking at the number of new companies that are being formed and scaling, the attention from our academic and research institutions as well as colleges to figure out how we can fit into the talent and training equation, increased attention from government to realize that this is a sector we need to support. I see all those signs as very strong signs of momentum, but the job is by no means done. I think we need to realize that this is a extraordinarily competitive, globally competitive arena that other jurisdictions are working to attract and retain the same talent that we are. They are building and scaling companies, and I think we have to take a bit of a sober look at what we do well and what we don't. And I would say we are, from my perspective, we are very good at the front end research and creating, if you will, creating innovation here, where we are continuing to suffer on challenges is scaling, translating that innovation and capturing some of the returns from it by scaling anchor companies and ensuring that our successes stay here, that the IP stays here, and we grow global champions. At AbCellera, we're aspiring, we feel like we're an anchor company in the ecosystem. We're 400 people. We're very proud of how we've grown a company up from a few dozen just 8 years ago. Or it was actually a founding group of 5 people in 2012. But what is an anchor company globally? It's thousands of people, 10,000 people. How do we get from here to there? That is the question at hand.
And there's a lot that we want to unpack specifically as it relates to training, because to your point, the research and discovery, and we're so blessed in BC with world-class research and academic institutions where the discovery happens, and then to ensure that we actually do scale is important. I'm conscious that as much AbCellera has been in the news a lot, and almost a household name, I would think, at least if you live in my world. Maybe you want to just take a minute to actually say what AbCellera is, because some people may not realize what the technology is that AbCellera has been, working on and developing to such a world-class level.
Thanks, Wendy. That's a great place to start. We are a biotech company that discovers and develops antibodies to treat disease. We are working in a partnership mode. We have partners across the globe, both large pharma and smaller biotechs and early stage venture spin-out companies that come to us to access our leading technology in discovering and increasingly develop therapies. This spans the range of disease indications, and we have now 150 programs within our portfolio. Of course, the last couple of years has been an incredibly exciting time and really a proof point of what we're trying to build here at AbCellera. We've been at the front lines of the COVID-19 response. This started about 2 years ago now, when we received the first patient sample consented for study at COVID-19, and within 3 months we were able to discover an antibody that entered clinical trials, the first such therapeutic antibody that was ultimately authorized within 7 months. And that antibody, bamlanivimab, has now been used in more than 1 million patients it's saved an estimated 100,000 hospitalizations and about 40,000 lives based on the clinical data. So we're very proud of that, of course. And to build on that, in fact, last week, the FDA announced that a second generation antibody that we discovered and has been developed with our partners Eli Lilly has been authorized for use. It is by far the most potent antibody available against COVID-19. It's also the broadest and is the only one that's effective against Omicron. So we're now the first company to have brought a second generation antibody to patients. And we think that this really is a proof point of what happens when you bring the best technology to bear on some of these discovery problems. And our mission now is really to build on that and to extend our work so that we're not just discovering these therapies here in BC, we're also translating them, clinically manufacturing them, and testing them here so that future pandemic, we would see the Canadian patients would be the first to receive these therapies.
I remember the day that that AbCellera received the call that they were going to get the blood sample, because I happened to be meeting with Carl that day, who kindly took the time to meet with me while you guys were about to go and save the world. But I'm interested. I don't know how many Canadian companies have had the opportunity to be part of the DARPA initiative, and maybe if you could talk a little bit about how that relationship started and how important that had been to being ready at the time when it was most critical.
Great. Thanks, Wendy. So the DARPA is the US agency which is tasked with funding high risk, high reward technology development projects in a range of strategic areas for the US. AbCellera has had a number of programs over the years where we've shown our strengths, our technology advantage for antibody drug discovery. And that ultimately translated into a program in 2018, the Pandemic Prevention Program, or P3, where DARPA funded 4 prime contractors, of which AbCellera was one, notably the not in the US, obviously, and we started to build on our capabilities in this area and really hone them in on a rapid response capability for a pandemic. Everyone knew and still knows that pandemics are a compelling threat to societies, and within 2 years, we were putting that capability into action at the front lines of COVID-19. So I think the takeaway here as we reflect on our capabilities and our programs in Canada and in BC is that investment in technologies, investment in translating research and focusing it on high value problems for society, for patients, is really well served. And that's something that we need to invest in. We need long-term strategies and programs that support this. There's no reason we can't do a similar thing in Canada. We just need the mindset that we can do this here. We have great minds, great innovation, and we need to harness that and put it to work and scale it up here in the country. So I know there has been talk about similar programs, a Canadian DARPA, a CARPA, if you will, and that's been broadly endorsed at the federal level. I think there's tremendous merit to advancing those discussions and putting together a meaningful program.
And I think there was certainly a lot of discussion with all the parties in the last election. They put forward their own versions of a CARPA at the federal level. I think what you're touching on also is something about a bit of a mind shift in policy and investment, in focusing it on what are the problems you're trying to solve or what are the outcomes you're trying to achieve, as opposed to just being about tactics. Because this type of an investment in going that direction involved a very different mindset. And my understanding also a bit about DARPA is they're allowed to be sort of out there on their side. They have funding and they are working on problems that may be solved, but they also recognize they're going to have a lot of failures along the way. And we all know we learn a lot more from failure often than from success. I want to go back to your comment about the opportunities in BC and Canada. So you started to talk about what, as you described, what Accelera did and what it does, today, and what the opportunities as we look ahead in taking that innovation further to being able to translate it. So can you talk a little bit about what would be needed for us in British Columbia in order to really advance it from where it is today?
There are a number of factors which I think we need to pay attention to. I'll focus on three here, Wendy. The first is the importance of building anchor companies. I think when we look at the talent equation, anchor companies, like Stem Cell, like Accelera, like others in our ecosystem, are the ones that provide that opportunity to retain local graduates from technical institutions, from research institutions. And there's an opportunity to now, as our sector is scaling, to ensure we are having more focused and specialized training that matches the needs of industry. The other side of having anchor companies is not only for the recruitment and retention side, it's also to attract back. We talked briefly earlier about repatriating. It's also, we're increasingly recruiting globally and getting significant interest from global leaders in their respective domains who want to come here and work with us and be a part of what we're building. An example is our Chief Commercial Officer we recently hired 2 months ago, Neil Aubuchon. Is a Canadian. He spent 2 decades in the industry, in leadership positions internationally with Lilly and with Amgen. And he now is coming and bringing his depth of expertise and experience to help us grow to the next stage. And also, of course, that experience translates to mentoring and helping the younger folks within our organization develop and have a path forward. So there's this sort of dual role of attracting the younger talent as well as bringing back the senior folks. Another example, we're building a GMP manufacturing facility in BC. We're very proud to be working in partnership with the Strategic Innovation Fund of the Government of Canada that has recognized this gap in our biomanufacturing capacity as a nation, and is committed to funding this program with us. We're about to break ground in May on this facility here in Vancouver. This will bring in about a dozen industry leaders. We are recruiting internationally for those positions that will staff the key senior roles that it takes to operate and bring one of those such a manufacturing facility online. There will be, in the end, more than 100 positions that will be focused on the CMC and GMP manufacturing, and there's a place there for the local talent pool to find their first step in a manufacturing environment and help come in under the mentorship of these industry leaders. So that's some comments around the anchor companies. I think a second point I'd like to make is just that to realize the moment we are at in biotechnology and life sciences. This is a historic moment. This is a giant opportunity for the decades to come to be a fertile sector of innovation and really drive economic development, sustainable economic development, and benefit Canadians through the products and therapies that we're developing. So in order to do that, we need our policymakers to be thinking about how can we retain companies here, create a business-friendly environment so that the IP that's being created is really staying here in the country within our walls, and we're actually participating in this global opportunity. The last thing I'll say, Wendy, is just in addition to anchor companies and creating an environment for success in this area, is to realize where our gaps are. And they really are in terms of, our expertise is in therapeutic development. We are punching well below our weight in terms of our ability to develop therapies here, clinically develop them, and run clinical trials. So focusing our attentions on how do we fill these gaps in the ecosystem so that the drugs that are being discovered here are also developed and clinically tested here. That is what's going to drive adoption into our ecosystem, enable the economic returns to rest here in Canada, and ultimately be delivering therapies to patients here in Canada.
Mm-hmm. And in the previous session where I was talking to Mike Martin from Irinia, we talked about the importance of clinical trials and, being able to, and ensuring that clinical trials are they had 200 sites across the US because of what patient group they were targeting and where those people were. But it is really important, to your point, that as this innovation comes forward, we are clinically developing it because, again, it's that cycle. I think, the overriding theme of what you just talked about of anchoring companies and ensuring that we're keeping our companies here, getting the return and advancing the clinical trials, it really does all come back to talent. And, we've talked about a talent gap for a number of years, and, you and I have just talked about it. And now the environment is right to bring some of this talent back and continue to grow and double down and support our companies as they're growing. We also have another thing that's happening here is that Canada and BC and companies like Accelera are also trying to almost create a new subsector of the life sciences sector called biomanufacturing. And so that's an area that we really need to double down and also build on the talent, because you're building a facility and we need to get you some people that can work there. So, partnering across industry and academia and with the colleges and ensuring that we're also training for the skills of the future is a big priority.
Absolutely, Wendy. I'd like to build on your thoughts there to perhaps just not only recognize that we do have actually a great base of talent here, but that we need to ensure that our graduates have skills that are matching the needs of industry. That is an important element to it. Historically, of course, we've found that many people leave BC because they haven't had those opportunities. So I would argue that the first thing that happens is we have growing companies here providing those opportunities, and then we need to make sure that and I feel like we are at that stage now, and increasingly we're hearing that we need to have a more nuanced approach to our talent development programs to ensure, for example, in manufacturing, that the technical skills of the graduates are matching the needs of a facility like that. Mm-hmm. As I referenced earlier, there is a role here for much more senior folks who come in who need to really act as those mentors and bring their expertise in this field. This isn't something that you can only grow from the bottom up. There needs to be a recognition. There's a bottom up program to encourage and develop the talent pipeline, whilst also providing the world-class mentorship and expertise that's needed to succeed in an area like this.
Mm-hmm. And I think as we envision the BC economy, as it continues to grow and diversify, life sciences is one of the fastest growing sectors, if not the fastest. There's a lot of opportunities for people to come into the life sciences sector from different other sectors with different skills. And so, I think, we've talked about it, new skilling, reskilling, upskilling. There are a lot of jobs that are being created, and we want to make sure that we are filling them with people that we either have today, or we develop them, retain them for the benefit of British Columbia, because we, as you say, have such an opportunity here right now.
Absolutely. And it's important to recognize that there's a spectrum of of backgrounds that is required in a company such as Obselera. Of course, we have people at the wet bench. We have biologists and biochemists and immunologists. There's also we have engineers working here. We have software developers. Actually, a huge focus of Obselera is in the data sciences, and we've long capitalized on the opportunity for using advanced data sciences techniques, machine learning, to make the biology side more efficient and improve our discovery and development technologies. But outside of the technical disciplines, we have all of the operations folks, finance, project management, administration, business development. This shows what happens when you create a flowering ecosystem. You will attract people in from multiple sectors, and the talent is not purely technical. It's not purely research focused. It really does span a broad spectrum, and we need to celebrate that and recognize the opportunity that this creates for a province like BC to diversify our economy and look at this as one of the strong growth pillars going forward.
Absolutely. And with that, Murray, the time has flown by. Thank you very much. Thank you for your leadership at Obselera. And I know you're super passionate about talent and growing our life sciences ecosystem. So thank you for that. I'd like to thank Obselera for supporting this session and all you do as an organization to support the ecosystem, because you guys are already giving back, even though you're still growing substantially. So we really appreciate that partnership and support. I'm going to close off this session, and in about 5 minutes, there's a networking session which is sponsored by Innovative Medicines Canada. Innovative Medicines Canada represents Canada's innovative pharmaceutical sector. They have approximately 48 member companies who invest up to $2 billion annually in R&D in Canada, much of which is revolutionizing the healthcare through innovation, discovery, and drug development. So with that, I hope everyone enjoys the networking session. Our next formal part of the conference will start at 1 p.m. PST. Again, Murray, thanks very much. Nice to see you again.
Thanks very much, Wendy. It was a pleasure.
Okay, bye.